What we're looking at in this video is a thing called variables. And what variables are used for is storing things in memory. So let's say that we have somebody's age and we want to add 1 to it the following year when they get older. We would need a variable to store that information and to add 1 to it. So these things called variables, firstly, where does the name come from? Well, if you think, let's maybe think about the weather. If you have a variable weather, it means it's changeable. So it might be raining, it might be sunny. That's variable weather. And variable means changing. So the thing that we're storing, and we could imagine our RAM looking like this. So if we create a variable and let's give it the name age, then that creates a thing called a pointer, which is to a location in memory in RAM. And so if I say that the age is assigned the value of 14, then I'm saying age points to a place in memory that stores the value 14. If I then say now my age is 15, because it's a year later, then I will take out the 14 that's there, and I will replace it this time with 15. And because it's a variable, what I can store in this area of memory can vary, it can change. So let's have a little look at how this works when we are programming. And so here we go. Remember that our programming code goes between the two words that say script. So we're going to start some programming here, and I'm going to make a variable called a, or let's make it age, and I'm going to give it the value of 14, and then I'm going to write that out onto my web page. And so let's just put the age on the screen like that, and we see there it's now outputting for us the number 14. Now if I add to that, so the age is assigned the value of 14 plus 1. And this time I'm again going to write that to my web page. And so we get next to it the number 15, and let's just put a line break there. And so we should get, remember the line break needs to be in speech marks. So I don't put things in speech marks. This age here isn't in speech marks because it's a variable, so it's pointing to the number of 14, whereas BR is some text, otherwise known as a string, and that needs to be put in speech marks. This plus here is called concatenation. So when I take two strings and I put them together, I concatenate them. So that's what I'm doing there. So I've got 14 and I've got 15 on the screen. Now, thinking about variables, one thing which is very important when we think about variables is something known as variable names. Variables are also known as, they're a type of identifier, and so this holds true of any identifier, variables, constants, which we get to later. But with variables, I'm thinking about my variable names. And this is really important that we get this right from the beginning so that we do good quality code. So variable names, there's two types of ways which you can do variable names. It could be something like my age, and we use an underscore. This is called underscore. We use an underscore to separate the words. We're not allowed to use spaces. It all has to be in one sort of string, in one row, as it were. And so that gets around not being able to use a space. Another way which is very, very common is something called Camel Case, and each word, apart from the first word, begins with a capital letter. So we'd have like my age there, or it could be, for a game, something like total score with a capital S. These ones here, we've used what's known as Camel Case, because it's like the humps of a camel. And we tend to start with a lowercase letter at the beginning. Some programming languages, by tradition, you'll use an uppercase letter, but we're going to start with a lowercase one. And the other thing is that generally names like A or B or Z or something, you know, AX, Y or something, these are not very useful to us. These tend to be seen as pretty bad choices. There's a few occasions when they are the best choice. So what you want is for your variable names to have meaningful useful names. And so my age would be good, total score would be good. It might be player 1 name, or it could be player name 1. And so you can use numbers, you can use letters, you can use capitals, small letters, and they're also known where it makes a difference of whether it's a big letter or a small letter, which is most languages do care about whether you're using upper or lowercase letters. That is called case sensitive. And so most languages are case sensitive. It does matter, am I using a capital letter or a small lowercase letter? And so when we look at the program which we've made, which is here, we can see we've got a fairly useful name there, which is age. If I want to use other variables, I can use strings, so I could put something like player name using Camel Case, and then I use speech marks because I'm using characters, I'm using a string, and so the player name I could use something like Zach, and then I can write the player name to the screen like that. And once again, I just want to add to that, or should I say concatenate to that, a line break there. One other thing is you'll notice at the end of each line of code I put this thing a semicolon. Like at the end of every single line of code there's a semicolon. That's like in writing English, we put a full stop at the end of each sentence. That tells the computer this is the end of that sentence, it's the end of that instruction. In C-style languages, C, Java, JavaScript, we are actually able to put lines side by side like this. And in fact, the way I've laid it out, there's no reason it's got to be laid out. I could have any kind of line space I wanted to. I could have it like this. The only reason we do it this way, we try and have each, just like our tags here, the body lines up with the body, the script lines up with the script. We try and have things in nice, neat rows, and preferably we try and have one instruction per line, just because it makes it easier for people to read. Now we don't have to do that, that's what the semicolon does, it's like a full stop, but it just makes things much, much easier for other programmers and yourself to read later. So try and get into a good style of indentation, so this is our indents here, and of lining things up nicely with one instruction per line of code.